I'm so pleased to have with us this afternoon Andrew Hattersley. Andrew Hattersley, known throughout the diabetic world as the person who's done so much on monogenic diabetes. And Andrew, there's lots that we could talk about, but I think where your particular interest lies at the moment is going from genetic diagnosis for the rarer things into the more common clinical phase. So just talk us through some of that. And I know there's a poster that you've been involved in.
Yeah, so it's very exciting. What we've seen in monogenic diabetes is making the right diagnosis, getting the etiology defined, has resulted in being able to give better treatment. And really, once you start applying that, you say, well, there's a massive area which isn't just this rare subgroup, but actually big questions on type 1 or type 2 diabetes. So we used to think it was very simple that the people who were diagnosed young, who were slim, had type 1, and the people who were old and were obese had type 2. But now what the questions are coming is, well, what about the obese young or the slim old? And there we find it's actually very difficult, and some very elegant work by Angus Jones and colleagues has really shown that we make those decisions wrong as much as 50% of the time.
So no better than chance?
No better than flicking a coin. And so these are people who we think have type 1 diabetes diagnosed after 30, and then we find out that they don't. Or conversely, we think they have type 2, and then we find that actually they need to go on to insulin. And so it seems very simple, but then you realize that just nobody has looked at it, that they haven't done the crucial studies. And that's what we're starting to do, really taking the techniques we've learned for monogenic and applying them to diagnosis of the big subgroups. And probably the main thing we've learned is don't make the rules too simple. Don't say, as NICE have, well, if your BMI is under 25 and your age is under 50, you've probably got type 1, partly because it's not always right, but also you're throwing away a lot of details. What happens if your age is 51? And what about if it's 20 and that's not the same? And so it really, what Bev Shields has been doing is putting this all together into a calculator. So the idea being that you actually put the numbers in and get a probability out. And we're now quite happy with apps and the computer that we can put stuff in and get an answer out without having to do complicated maths.
And that takes us further down the route of personalised medicine. It's been something that we've been talking about a lot here in the EASD live studio, but that idea of personalised medicine, and personalised medicine doesn't always mean genomics, which of course lots of people think that it does.
Yeah. And I think that's the exciting thing, is that actually these simple criteria, it turns out that using age of diagnosis as a number and BMI as a number can give you very high accuracy. And then if you add to that antibodies, but you put it all in together, you don't take them each in isolation, and then you can add genomics on top. One of the elegant things Richard Oram done is to do a type 1 genetic risk score, which says, are you likely to be genetically predisposed to type 1 or not? And so if you can put all that in, you can get to 99% accuracy. And if you think we're starting from 50%, to move to 99% at really very little cost would be a remarkable thing. And I think it's really precision medicine that you can do now, rather than precision medicine which we hope in the future will come.
And where does that put Mrs. May?
Well, Mrs. May was because I think...
This is the British Prime Minister, by the way.
So, well, she has many problems, but actually one of the problems she had in 2012, which she told Diabetes UK about, was that she was misdiagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And once she'd started along that track, she was given the treatment for type 2, and then it turned out that it didn't work, and finally she was diagnosed as type 1, and luckily for her, she was reclassified, and now you'll see that she has a glucose monitor and she has takes multiple insulin injections. But many people, like Mrs. May, get the diagnosis wrong, but they don't then get corrected. And really we would much rather that people got the diagnosis right at diagnosis, rather than waiting for 9 months as she did. And some people it may take 10 years before the correct diagnosis is made.
Now, Andrew, and spare your blushes, but you're a giant in this world. What are you thinking of the people that we've now got coming up, the early career academics in diabetes? Is there hope for the future here?
I think for me, it's probably the most exciting part of my career at the moment is seeing the talent that there is, and actually from all countries, and people coming with new ideas, and there's new technologies, and whenever new technology comes in, the ground goes back to zero. I was involved in when genetic technology came in, and what you saw was the fact that you were an ancient professor has no advantage if the technology is new. And we're seeing that again and again. New technology comes in, and that gives new opportunities, and we need smart young minds. The thing I'm really excited about is people with a mathematics background coming into diabetes research. And what they're able to do is, and what they can do with data, is really exciting. So it's people from different areas, and then working together and discussing. And I think some of our meetings, which we have once a week, where we all get together and discuss new data, are some of the most exciting times. I have to rub myself and think, God, I get paid for doing this. It's just brilliant. So I think the future is very rosy. There's some very smart people.
Fantastic. Well, you can see all the presentations that Andrew has been talking about on EASD.org, and I do urge you to go and look at those posters by those very bright young things, because they really are the future of diabetes.